The airport never slept. Its artificial lights buzzed above like unblinking eyes, washing everything in sterile white. Announcements echoed across terminals like a lullaby no one really heard. Luggage wheels clicked on tiled floors. Phones glowed in tired hands. And in the corner of Gate 42, Lena Carter curled herself into the stiff curve of an airport chair, backpack cradled against her chest like a makeshift pillow. She looked too delicate for this kind of place, worn, yes, but not weak. Her coat was old but clean. Her jeans were frayed at the hems. Her boots had walked too many miles. Her brown hair spilled in a loose braid over her shoulder, and her face, though weary, still held the kind of beauty that bloomed quietly, like wildflowers on the roadside. She didn't belong here, not really. Not at this hour, not alone. But she had no choice. Her mother's funeral was tomorrow in Savannah. The cheapest connecting flight out of New York was booked solid. She had missed the last one by 17 minutes thanks to a delayed bus and a broken terminal train. The next flight didn't leave until morning, and she had $43 to her name. So she folded herself up like luggage, pressed her cheek against the cold vinyl armrest, and exhaled slowly. The ache in her chest, grief, exhaustion, hunger settled deep. Across the terminal, a man in a black suit watched her. Ethan Hale stood near a vending machine, untouched coffee in hand, posture too still for someone trying to blend in. He didn't know why he noticed her. Maybe it was the way she whispered sorry when someone bumped into her, even though it was their fault. Maybe it was the way she offered her last granola bar to a crying toddler whose mother was too busy arguing with an airline agent. Or maybe it was the way she held that letter. He could see it in her hands, creased from reading, clutched like a lifeline. She stared at it sometimes with a blank expression, the kind that came only after all the tears had dried. She didn't check her phone. She didn't scroll or sigh or complain. She just sat there, waiting. Ethan's chest tightened. He recognized that silence. He'd been there before. 2 years ago, he had stood in an ICU hallway holding a different kind of letter. One that said, "I'm sorry, we did everything we could." It had changed him. Not just the pain of losing his sister, his only family, but the way grief stripped the world of its noise. Since then, he had withdrawn from the limelight, canceled interviews, and handed his billion-dollar company to his board. And yet here he was, watching a stranger with haunted eyes and a quiet soul. She shifted in her seat, pulling her coat tighter. Ethan turned to his bodyguard. "Can you get her something hot? Tea, no sugar," quietly. The man raised an eyebrow. "Sir, are you sure?" "She doesn't need to know it's from me." A few minutes later, Lena blinked in surprise when a flight attendant handed her a steaming paper cup. "Oh, I didn't order this," she said gently. "It's complimentary, ma'am," the attendant replied, then disappeared before Lena could protest. She stared at the tea as if unsure whether to trust it. Then, with hesitant fingers, she wrapped her palms around the warmth and brought it to her lips. Across the lounge, Ethan finally sat down on a bench. He watched her sip slowly, her shoulders relaxing just slightly. He wasn't trying to impress her. He didn't even plan to speak to her. He just didn't want her to feel invisible. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel entirely alone either. Outside, the storm clouds above New York rolled on. Inside, in the quiet corner of Gate 42, two strangers sat under flickering lights, both lost in their own way, both waiting for something more than just a flight. And somewhere in between that silence, something began. Ethan Hale didn't like airports. They were too loud, too crowded, too chaotic. But tonight, the stillness in Terminal B made it bearable, even calming. He stood near the charging station, phone untouched in his pocket, as he quietly observed the girl now dozing against her backpack. He didn't know her name. Didn't know why she was here alone at 2:00 a.m., curled like a question mark in that stiff chair. But there was something about her stillness that pulled at him. She wasn't like the women he usually saw in airports. No designer bags, no loud complaints about delays, no impatient sighing while scrolling endlessly. Just stillness, sadness, strength. And that letter, she had stared at it for so long. He stepped back into the shadows, out of her line of sight. "Sir," his bodyguard whispered again a few feet away. "The lounge is ready. You'll be more comfortable." "I'm fine here," Ethan replied curtly, not looking at him. The bodyguard hesitated. "We can arrange a quieter terminal." "I said I'm fine." He didn't usually bark orders anymore, but tonight something in his chest felt raw and unfamiliar. Being around her, watching her, reminded him of a life before the headlines, before betrayal, before money felt more like a weapon than a blessing. His reputation still echoed through every boardroom in New York. Ethan Hale, the genius who built Haletech from his dorm room. The billionaire who refused to marry his socialite fiancée once her affair went public. The recluse who walked out of his own engagement party without saying a word. The media had called it a breakdown, but in truth, it was the first time in his life he had stopped pretending. He remembered his mother's voice before she passed. "The higher you climb, Ethan, the lonelier it gets. Remember to look back down sometimes. You might see someone worth climbing back for." He looked at the girl again. She had fallen asleep, teacup empty beside her. Her lips were slightly parted, brows still drawn together in sleep. Her coat, too thin for the air conditioning, slipped off one shoulder. He fought the sudden urge to drape his own over her. Instead, he whispered, "Get a blanket from the lounge." The bodyguard frowned. "For her." Ethan didn't answer. He simply returned to the chair across from her and sat down, elbows on his knees, watching the runway lights flicker in the distance. Meanwhile, in Lena's dreams, she dreamt of a kitchen back home, small, warm, filled with the scent of cinnamon tea. Her mother sat at the table, humming softly, hands wrapped around her favorite cup. Lena tried to speak, to say goodbye, but no words came. Then the light changed, her mother faded. Lena awoke with a jolt, heart thudding. Her eyes adjusted to the sterile glow of the terminal. Something was different. A warm fleece blanket now lay over her lap. Her backpack had been gently shifted to the side, and a water bottle stood nearby with a small wrapped granola bar. She looked around, startled. "Cool." Her eyes swept the terminal. There across from her sat a man in black, his face turned slightly toward the window. He didn't move, didn't speak. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither of them blinked. Ethan gave the smallest nod, a silent acknowledgement, not an offer, not a question, just a presence. Lena hesitated, then nodded back. Something inside her softened. Back in row A. Hours later, as the sun broke gently over the tarmac, the flight announcement echoed. Flight 386 to Savannah, now boarding at gate 42. Lena straightened slowly, rubbing her stiff neck. She gathered her things, folded the blanket neatly on the seat, and clutched her boarding pass. Ethan remained seated, watching quietly as she stepped toward the boarding line. Her pass beeped red. "You've been upgraded to first class, Miss Carter," the agent said. She blinked. "That must be a mistake." "No mistake," the woman said, offering a tight smile. "Enjoy your flight." Behind her, Ethan finally rose and approached the counter with his own boarding pass, silently slipping into the first-class line, 3 passengers behind her. He said nothing as he passed by her seat. But when she looked up again from her boarding pass, he was already seated in row A, seat 1B, the one right beside hers. The cabin doors closed with a soft thud, sealing them in a world of low lights, muffled footsteps, and muted anticipation. Lena sat frozen in seat 1A, staring out the oval window at the runway lights streaking through the early dawn. Her fingers clenched the armrest as if letting go would send her flying out into the air before the plane even moved. Her thoughts were loud, louder than the quiet hum of first-class luxury around her. She didn't belong here. The seat was buttery leather, the space wide enough to stretch out, and someone had already offered her fresh orange juice in a crystal glass. She'd barely said yes. What was she doing in first class? And why was he sitting next to her? The man in seat 1B had said nothing since boarding, not even when their eyes met again briefly before takeoff. but she could feel his presence in the air like static, calm, composed, and watchful. He didn't leer, he didn't talk unnecessarily, but he noticed her, noticed everything. And the strangest part, she didn't feel scared. Moments earlier, Ethan had offered her a polite nod as she took her seat but said nothing else. He respected her space, knew better than to force conversation with someone who clearly had too much on her mind. But now, as the plane rose gently into the air, he could see the way she gripped the armrest, fingers white at the knuckles. "You okay?" he finally asked, his voice low, almost cautious. Lena startled slightly, then nodded. "Yeah, just not used to flying, especially not like this." He gave a faint smile. It's a strange place to be when your mind is somewhere else. She turned to him then, for the first time really looking, sharp cheekbones, a faint stubble shadowing his jaw, eyes that looked older than the rest of him. Dark suit, no tie. Clean, but not flashy. "You always upgrade strangers to first class?" she asked. "No," he said honestly, "just you." Her brows lifted. "You looked like you needed to be somewhere, and like the world had given you enough to carry." That made her blink. "You don't even know me." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "No, but I know what grief looks like." That shut her up, not in offense, but in truth, the kind that doesn't need elaboration. Lena looked down at her hands, quiet for a moment. "My mom died yesterday." "I figured," he said gently. She nodded. She was all I had left. Ethan said nothing, but in his silence there was something solid, something more comforting than 1,000 hollow condolences. She turned her gaze back to the window. Hours passed quietly. The flight attendant brought breakfast, warm croissants, eggs, fruit. Lena only nibbled at the corner of the toast. Ethan ate nothing. She noticed. "You're not eating," she said. He glanced at his untouched plate. "I'm not really hungry." "Me either," she said softly, "but it feels rude not to try." He smiled faintly. "You always this considerate." She shrugged. "It's easier than being ungrateful." There was no bitterness in her voice, just quiet strength. He liked that. Later, as the cabin dimmed, night, or the illusion of it, descended over the cabin again as the window shades came down. Some passengers reclined and drifted into sleep, the hush of altitude wrapping around them like a blanket. Lena tried to rest, but her mind raced. Images of her mother's face in the hospital, the beep of machines, the last voicemail she never answered. "Come home, baby, just come home soon." Her throat tightened. Without thinking, she fished the crumpled letter from her coat pocket. The handwriting was hers, words she planned to read at the funeral. She stared at it but couldn't bear to open it. Ethan watched her silently. He didn't ask, didn't intrude. But he shifted his chair just slightly until their arms brushed gently. She didn't pull away. And when the first tear escaped her lashes, she wiped it quickly with the sleeve of her coat, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't usually cry in front of strangers." He replied without hesitation. "I don't usually sit beside strangers who make me want to listen." That made her pause. Lena turned to him, studying his expression. It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't shallow, just real, steady. "You're different," she murmured. "So are you." "A beat." "What's your name?" she finally asked. "Ethan." She nodded. "I'm Lena." A soft, strange smile passed between them. Then she leaned her head slightly back, trying again to rest. The hum of the engine lulled her. Her hand relaxed on the armrest, and a moment later, Ethan's hand brushed against it. She didn't move. And neither did he. Somewhere between the clouds and grief, something unspoken tethered them. Not love, not yet. But something tender, something real. And as the plane soared through the sky, Lena, who hadn't truly slept in days, finally let her eyes drift shut, her head tilting slowly toward Ethan's shoulder. He didn't move. He simply stayed there, grounding her through the storm she didn't know she'd been flying through all along. The moment Lena stepped off the plane, the weight of the air changed. She could feel it in her bones, the humid grip of the South, the scent of wet grass and forgotten roads, and the haunting echo of a place she'd once called home. Mason, Georgia. The sign above the airport exit hadn't changed, but everything else had. She stood there on the curb with her small bag in hand, unsure what to do next. There was no one waiting for her. No warm hug. No welcome home. Just an empty ride-share app that wouldn't load and a streetlight flickering above her head like it, too, had seen better days. Then, a black SUV pulled up. The window rolled down. "Need a ride?" Ethan's voice. Lena blinked, startled. "You followed me." He shrugged, his arm casually resting on the steering wheel. "I told you I had business in Atlanta. Mason's only an hour out. I figured you might not have a ride." She hesitated. "You came all this way for me." "I wasn't going to leave you standing alone at the curb." A pause. "Not today." The sincerity in his voice disarmed her. Again. Lena bit her lip, then walked to the passenger side and climbed in without another word. The drive was quiet at first. Outside the window, rolling fields passed in slow motion, barns half collapsed, gas stations with peeling paint, roadside churches with signs that read, "Jesus saves, Sunday at 10. Ethan didn't try to make small talk. He let her be. Lena finally broke the silence. "This place, I haven't been back since I turned 18. You left after high school." "Didn't even stay for graduation," she said. "Packed my things and ran, thought the city would erase all of this." Ethan glanced at her, but he didn't ask why she ran. Still, she offered it. "My mom worked 3 jobs. My dad left before I could spell his name. And this town, it made sure you never forgot what you didn't have." He nodded slowly, "And yet here you are." "Not by choice." Another silence settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who understood that some wounds didn't need to be explained every time. They just needed space. They turned down a narrow road. The sign read, "Willow Grove Cemetery." Lena's chest tightened. The road curved gently, lined with oaks heavy with Spanish moss. A fog clung to the ground, giving everything an eerie stillness. As they reached the small gravel lot, Lena's fingers began to tremble. She gripped her bag tighter than necessary. "I'll wait here," Ethan said softly. She looked at him, eyes glistening. "Thank you for everything." He just nodded, and she stepped out. Among the graves, her boots crunched softly on the gravel path as she walked deeper into the cemetery, past names she hadn't read in years. Names of neighbors, teachers, forgotten town heroes. Then she saw it. Caroline Jane Harris. Beloved mother, fierce heart. 1973, 2025. A fresh plot, a mound of disturbed soil. The sight hit her like a punch to the chest. Lena sank slowly to her knees. "I'm here, Mama," she whispered, tears finally breaking through. "I came back. I know I was late, but I came back." She pulled out the crumpled letter, the one she wrote on the plane, her eulogy. Words she couldn't bring herself to speak in front of strangers at a funeral she missed. But she read them now, just for her mother. Each word cracked open another part of her heart. "You were everything to me," she read aloud. "And I never said it enough. I was so angry at you for getting sick, for being alone, for not telling me how bad it really was, but I understand now. You didn't want me to carry that burden. You wanted me to fly." Her voice broke. "But the truth is I never flew, I just ran, and I'm so sorry." A gust of wind swept through the trees, rustling leaves and whispering across the grass. She closed her eyes. Somehow, it felt like her mother heard her. Back in the car, Lena climbed in slowly, her face wet but calm, peaceful even. Ethan didn't ask how it went. He didn't need to. "I feel like I can breathe again," she said. He offered a quiet smile. "That's a start." She exhaled deeply, then glanced at him. "I don't want to go back to my apartment tonight." Ethan raised an eyebrow. So where do you want to go? She thought for a second. There's an old diner near Route 7. Mama used to take me there after school sometimes. Think you could handle small-town waffles? He grinned. I'll drive. Neither of them said it out loud, but something had shifted. Lena hadn't just returned to bury her mother. She'd come back to bury the version of herself that was always running. And Ethan, he wasn't just a stranger on a plane anymore. He was the first person who'd stayed. The bell above the door jingled with a familiar chime. Lena stepped into Dottie's diner like someone wading through memory, hesitant, careful not to disturb the ghosts clinging to every booth. Nothing had changed. The red vinyl seats were still cracked at the edges. The jukebox in the corner still blinked, stuck on an Elvis Presley tune. The smell of coffee, bacon, and something sweet, maybe peach cobbler, wrapped around her like a long-lost lullaby. This place is frozen in time, Ethan murmured beside her. Lena nodded slowly. Frozen is right, like my childhood pressed between two pieces of glass. A waitress with silver hair and tired eyes looked up from the counter. Her name tag read Rose. Lena, the woman said, squinting. Lena froze, then smiled. Hi, Miss Rose. My lord, the woman gasped, rushing around the counter with surprising speed. She threw her arms around Lena. I thought I was seeing a ghost. Last I heard you'd gone off to New York or L.A. or some big city. Lena hugged her back, a mix of comfort and grief rising in her throat. I've been gone a while. Miss Rose pulled back and looked at her properly. I'm real sorry about your mama. She loved you something fierce, child. Came in here every Thursday, ordered peach pie, and always asked if I'd heard from you. Lena blinked, biting down hard on the emotion threatening her voice. I didn't know that. Sit, eat. First meal S on the house, Rose said, already turning back to grab menus. You too, handsome stranger. Ethan chuckled as they slid into a booth. Small towns are dangerously nice. Careful, Lena warned. They remember everything. Over coffee and cobbler. Their food arrived. Chicken and waffles for Ethan, bacon and eggs for Lena, and a slice of cobbler with 2 spoons in the middle. For a while they ate quietly. Then Ethan asked the question she'd been dreading. What really happened between you and your mom? Lena stared into her coffee cup, watching the cream swirl like a storm. She didn't want me to leave, she began. Said I was chasing dreams that didn't want me back, that I'd get hurt out there. But I was angry. I thought she didn't believe in me. Thought she wanted me stuck here like her. And did she? No, Lena whispered. She was just scared. She saw what I couldn't. I was chasing approval more than dreams, wanting the world to clap for me, so I'd forget what I came from. Ethan nodded slowly. She didn't say goodbye the day I left, Lena added. I never forgave her for that, but now I wonder if I left too fast to give her the chance. The silence that followed was gentle, respectful. Then Ethan said, Do you think she'd forgive you? Lena swallowed hard. I think she already did. Outside the diner, they stepped back into the night air, the stars scattered like sugar across the dark velvet sky. Lena breathed deeply, the scent of pine and distant rain filling her lungs. Ethan walked beside her, quiet, until he said, You're brave, you know. She raised an eyebrow. I cried over eggs and peach pie. Doesn't feel very brave. You came back, he replied. That takes guts. Lena looked at him for a long time. You surprise me, Ethan Gray. How is that? I pegged you for the charm and vanish type, but you stayed, even through the tears. He smiled softly. Maybe I've had enough of vanishing, too. A walk through Willow Street. Instead of heading back to the car, they walked, past the diner, down an old neighborhood lane where crooked fences and porch swings still stood like sentinels of the past. Lena stopped outside a faded white house with peeling paint. That was mine, she said. Tiny, creaky floors and no central air, but my mom made it feel like a castle. She stepped closer, peering through the old screen door. I remember one summer, she said, her voice distant. We couldn't afford a fan, so Mama filled a metal tub with ice and made me sit in it while she read me stories. We laughed so hard, we forgot it was 100 degrees. Ethan watched her quietly, moved. She made magic out of nothing, Lena added. And I never saw it then, I was too busy wanting more. That doesn't make you selfish, he said, just human. A long pause. Then Lena turned to him. I want to stay a little longer, not in Mason forever, but here, just for a bit. There are things I need to face. Ethan smiled, his eyes warm. Then I'll book a hotel nearby. She laughed softly, still following me. No, he said, just walking beside you. Lena Harris realized something profound. Home wasn't just a place. It was healing, overdue forgiveness, and unexpected kindness in the form of a man she met on a plane. And for the first time in years, she wasn't running. She was choosing. The next morning, Lena awoke in her mother's old bedroom. The floral wallpaper, faded with time, peeled gently at the corners. A framed photo of her as a child sat on the dresser, gap-toothed, smiling wide, holding a plastic tiara on her head. Her mother must have dusted it every week. Even now, it gleamed. She pressed her palm to it. Hi, Mama, she whispered. Then she got dressed, pulled her hair into a low bun, and made her way to the local library. A quiet visit turns loud. Lena wasn't sure what had drawn her there. Maybe it was the need to feel small in a space full of stories, or maybe because the library had once been the only place her dreams felt safe. Her mother had taken her every Saturday, letting her read for hours while she shelved books in silence. The bell above the door jingled. She stepped in and was immediately hit by the smell of old pages and lemon cleaner. She smiled, exhaling. It was quiet until a child's voice broke the stillness. Don't touch it, MYA, it's not done yet. Lena turned. In a corner near the window, a girl of about 7 sat hunched over a sketchbook, fiercely protecting it from her younger brother who was trying to peek. The girl had dark curly hair tied in a puff, smudges of pencil on her cheeks, and intensity in her eyes that startled Lena. Ethan leaned down behind Lena and whispered, I think she's been reincarnated from Picasso. Lena chuckled, or maybe she's just protecting her dream. An unexpected connection. As they browsed, the little girl came over and sat across from Lena at the reading table, plopping her sketchbook down with a sigh. You're new, the girl said flatly. Lena raised her eyebrows. I used to live here, but yes, I'm kind of new now. The girl stared at her. Can I see your drawing? Lena asked gently. The girl slid it forward like she was handing over something sacred. It was beautiful, a portrait of a woman sitting on a bench under a tree reading to a girl with wild hair. The lines were careful, emotional, almost haunting. Lena blinked. Is that you and your mom? The girl shook her head. That's my grandma and me. My mom works a lot. What's your name? Naomi, she replied. You. Lena. Naomi tilted her head. You look like someone who draws or sings or writes poems. Lena smiled. I used to act in theater, then I stopped. Naomi narrowed her eyes. Why? Lena hesitated. Ethan chimed in from a nearby shelf. She forgot who she was for a little while. Naomi gave a serious nod. That happens. Grown-ups are always forgetting stuff. Wisdom from a child. Naomi flipped the page in her sketchbook. I want to be an artist, she said, but everyone says it's hard, that I'll be broke and hungry. Lena leaned in. That's true. Naomi's eyes widened. But, Lena added, it's worth it if you love it. It's worth it if it makes you feel alive. Naomi looked down at her page and smiled. Then she ripped it out, clean and bold, and handed it to Lena. For you, she said. Lena stared at the sketch of the tree, and the woman and the child. I can't take this, she whispered. Yes, you can, Naomi said firmly. Sometimes people give you things so you remember. Remember what? Naomi shrugged. That you matter. Lena swallowed hard. She took the paper. Later, outside the library. Back outside, Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders as they walked to the car. "You okay?" he asked. "I don't know what just happened," Lena said. "That little girl, she saw right through me." Ethan grinned. "Kids usually do. They're tiny truth detectors." She stared at the sketch again. "I forgot why I loved performing, why I started. My whole life I was trying to get out, make it big, prove I was more than a small-town girl. But maybe it wasn't about proving anything. Maybe it was about remembering who helped you believe in the first place." She stopped walking and looked at him. "She used to read to me under a tree," Lena said softly. "Mom, that sketch, that's not just Naomi's memory, that's mine too." A new chapter begins. That night back at the house, Lena framed the drawing and placed it above her mother's dresser. A quiet tribute. Then she pulled out her laptop, opened a blank document and began to write, not a script or a monologue or a scene, but a letter. To herself. To her mother. To the little girl who had once believed she could change the world. The rain had stopped. The clouds had scattered like old fears, and the moon, full and unapologetically bright, hung above the town like a spotlight waiting to shine on someone ready to step into it. Lena stood outside the Rusty Lantern Cafe, her heart pounding in her chest. A chalkboard sign read, "Open mic night, share your story, your song, or just your soul." Ethan nudged her forward gently. "You don't have to do this, but you can." She looked at him, then back at the warm glow spilling from the windows. She could hear laughter, a guitar, the buzz of nervous voices and coffee cups clinking. Lena inhaled and pushed the door open, stepping back into the light. The cafe was packed, cozier than she remembered from her teenage years. Locals sat on mismatched chairs, some sipping lattes, others waiting their turn on the makeshift stage at the back. A young man with a banjo was finishing a soulful tune. A woman in her 60s stood near the bar, scribbling poetry on a napkin. Teenagers whispered nervously, clapping for their friends. It was loud and alive and imperfect. It felt right. Ethan guided her to the sign-up sheet on the counter. "Just your name, you don't have to explain anything." She stared at the list, her hand trembled. Then slowly she wrote, "Lena Jameson, spoken word." The wait. Her name was fifth in line. She sat with Ethan near the back. The drawing Naomi gave her tucked inside her notebook, pressed against her chest like armor. Every performer was brave in their own way. One read a poem about losing her dad to cancer. Another sang an off-key song about a breakup. And a kid no older than 10 beatboxed nervously with his sister clapping behind him. The audience clapped for everyone. No judgment, no competition. Just truth. And then the host tapped the mic. "Next up," he said, scanning the page, "we have Lena Jameson, spoken word." Heartbeats and microphones. Her legs moved before her mind caught up. As she climbed the little wooden steps to the platform, the room felt both vast and intimate. Ethan gave her a thumbs up. Naomi's drawing was in her hand. She stood at the mic, her throat dry, her palms sweating. "Hi," she said softly. Someone in the back cheered. She smiled barely. "My name is Lena. I left this town a long time ago thinking I needed a bigger stage, a brighter light. I chased auditions, roles, and applause, and somewhere along the way I forgot who I was." A hush fell over the room. "But someone gave me this today." She held up Naomi's sketch. "A drawing of a woman reading under a tree, and I remembered something. That girl in the sketch, that was me." The poem. She unfolded a page, took a breath, and began to read. She was the girl who danced on gravel, in dollar store shoes and dreams stitched by her mother's fingers. She spoke to mirrors, believing they were audiences, and cried when no one clapped in real life. She left town in a blur of ambition, promising to return only when she was somebody. But what they never told her was, being somebody meant remembering who loved you when you were nobody. And now she's back, with old roots and new wounds, carrying sketches and ghosts and truth she never spoke aloud. This is her voice, shaking, healing. Finally home. Her voice cracked on the last line. But the room was silent. Then the applause came, soft, growing, genuine, not just clapping, connection. Healing in applause. As she stepped off the stage, a woman touched her arm and whispered, "Thank you for that." Another man said, "I felt that in my chest." Ethan stood at the edge, eyes glassy. He didn't speak, just pulled her into a long hug. "You didn't just perform," he said. "You came back to life." She smiled against his shoulder. "I think I did." Later that night, they sat on the hood of Ethan's car under the stars, sipping hot cocoa from paper cups. Lena looked up at the sky, her voice quiet. "I want to teach again. Kids, theater, art, expression, maybe not on Broadway, but here, where it matters." Ethan looked over, admiring her profile in the starlight. "Then let's make it happen." She turned to him. "You really think I can?" He tapped her heart gently. "You just did." The next morning brought golden light filtering through half-open blinds and the scent of cinnamon rolls drifting through Ethan's kitchen. Lena sipped coffee at the table, her sketchbook open but untouched. She had slept well for the first time in weeks. Her poem still echoed in her chest, like a song she hadn't known was inside her. Naomi's drawing rested near the coffee pot, where Ethan had carefully taped it to the cupboard. He said it deserved to witness breakfast. Then came the knock at the door. Ethan opened it, and there, standing awkwardly with a crumpled envelope in his hand, was Robert Jameson, Lena's father. A face from the past. He looked older, smaller somehow, like life had weathered him down to something quieter than the man Lena remembered, stern, proud, often too silent for too long. His voice was gravel now. "I heard you spoke at the Lantern last night." Lena stiffened. Word travels fast. He nodded. "It's a small town, and you made waves." Ethan stepped back to let him in, but Lena shook her head. "No need. If you have something to say, say it here." Her father held out the envelope. "This was written a long time ago by your mother. I didn't give it to you when she passed. I should have." Lena stared at the letter. She hadn't heard her mother's name in over a year. Just the mention of her cracked something open. "Why now?" "Because," he said softly, "you came home. And because last night I think your mother would have clapped the loudest." "The letter?" "He left after that." Lena sat in silence, her hands trembling as she opened the yellowed envelope. The paper inside was folded carefully, edges soft with age. The handwriting was familiar, elegant, rounded, unmistakably her mother's. "My sweet Lena, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to say goodbye the way I wanted. First, I need you to know how proud I am of you. Not just for chasing your dreams, but for carrying so much light inside you, even when the world tried to dim it. You were born to speak, to create, to make people feel something. I saw it in your eyes every time you danced in the living room or sang to yourself in the bath. But I also saw the hurt, the way your father and I didn't always understand you. And I'm sorry for the silences, for the walls we built when we should have built bridges. One day you'll come back to where it all began, not because you failed, but because you'll finally understand that the roots we plant don't keep us stuck. They keep us strong. Come back when you're ready. We'll still be here, even if it's only in letters and wind and memories. Love you always. Mom." Lena clutched the letter to her chest. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. Ethan watched, unsure if he should move, but Lena looked up and whispered, "She knew I'd come back." He nodded. "She never stopped believing in you." Later that day, Lena walked to the house she grew up in. Her father was in the garden, kneeling by the rose bushes her mother had once planted. He didn't look up as she approached. "She wrote a lot of letters. I found that one a few months after the funeral, couldn't bring myself to open it." Lena sat on the porch steps watching him. She forgave us, she said, even before we asked for it. Robert stood slowly. I never hated your dreams, you know. I just didn't know how to protect you from the world without crushing your wings. I know, Lena said. They were quiet for a long time. Then her father added, would you come for Sunday dinner? Naomi and we could use some brightness again. She smiled, eyes still wet. Only if I can bring cinnamon rolls. That night, Lena stood in her old bedroom, now dusty and filled with boxes. She opened one marked Lena High School. Inside were playbills, journals, and a cassette recording of her first theater monologue. She laughed through tears and found a note her mother had scrawled on the back of a picture. Keep this spark, it will carry you home. Lena closed her eyes and let the weight of it settle in. She wasn't lost. She was just finding her way back. The next Saturday was bright and alive with summer warmth. Naomi wore her favorite polka dot dress and skipped beside Lena as they walked to the farmer's market downtown. Hand in hand, they looked like a painting, one of joy rediscovered and childhood reborn. Can I get strawberries? Naomi asked, already tugging Lena toward the fruit stalls. Only if we also get carrots for the cinnamon rolls, Lena teased. From the booth behind them, Ethan watched with quiet admiration. He didn't know which of the two he was falling for faster, Lena's spark or Naomi's laugh. Maybe both. Maybe the world had finally slowed enough for his heart to catch up. As they wandered from stall to stall, Naomi stopped suddenly at a stand selling handmade charm necklaces. Her eyes locked on a tiny silver pendant shaped like a microphone. That one, she whispered, it looks like you. Me, Lena chuckled. You talk to people with your voice. Mommy used to say your words made people feel strong. Lena's breath caught. She hadn't realized Naomi remembered her mother saying that. She knelt beside her. Naomi, can I tell you something? The little girl nodded solemnly. I was scared to come home. I thought I'd only bring sadness. But you and your dad, you made me believe again. Naomi reached into her small purse and pulled out 2 quarters and a single dollar bill. It's all I have. Can I buy the microphone for you? Lena blinked back tears. I think we'll buy it together. That evening, the 3 of them sat beneath the great oak tree near the lake, Ethan, Naomi, and Lena. Fireflies danced above the water. Naomi had fallen asleep with her head on Lena's lap, soft snores curling into the breeze. She really loves you, Ethan murmured. Lena ran her fingers through Naomi's curls. I love her too, more than I ever thought possible. Ethan hesitated, and what about us? Lena looked up at him, her heart thudding. I don't know what this is yet, she said honestly, but I know it feels like home. He leaned closer. Then stay just a little longer, we'll figure it out. She smiled, eyes misty. I think I already am. The next morning, Lena was woken by a tiny giggle. Naomi stood beside the bed, holding a piece of folded paper. What's this? Lena asked sleepily. My wish list, Naomi said, climbing onto the bed and handing it to her. Lena opened it. In careful crayon letters, it read, Naomi's wish list. 1. Eat pancakes every Sunday. 2. Paint a wall with glitter. 3. Sleep in a tent with Auntie Lena. 4. Hear Daddy laugh more. 5. Ask Lena to be my forever mommy. Lena stared at the last line, her throat tightening. Naomi. I know you're not my real mommy, Naomi said quickly, but I think maybe you're my real heart mommy. Lena hugged her tightly, tears soaking Naomi's curls. Then I'll be your real heart mommy forever, she whispered. Later that day, Lena sat across from Ethan at the Lantern Cafe. She slid the list across the table. He read it in silence, his hand trembling slightly. I didn't put her up to this, he said, voice thick. I know. Ethan looked up. What are you thinking? I think we were broken pieces, Lena said. But somehow your piece and mine fit together, maybe Naomi's too. You don't have to decide today. Lena smiled. I already did, I'm not leaving. That weekend, they painted Naomi's bedroom wall with glitter, just like she wanted. Pancakes sizzled on Sunday. Ethan laughed more. And Lena? She stood beneath the stage lights again, not in a distant city, but in the heart of the town she once fled. The town that forgave, that remembered, that healed. Her poem ended with new words this time. We are made of broken stardust. And maybe that's enough. Because in the dark, the broken things still shine. As she stepped down, Naomi ran up and threw her arms around her. You did it, she squealed. Lena looked over her shoulder at Ethan, who mouthed, You're home. She nodded. Finally, she believed it. It was a Sunday morning, and the house smelled like cinnamon and maple syrup. Naomi danced barefoot in the kitchen, pancake batter on her nose, while Lena flipped pancakes on the griddle. Ethan leaned against the doorway, coffee in hand, watching them with the kind of quiet awe reserved for the rarest of miracles. I declare this the best Sunday ever, Naomi cheered. You say that every Sunday, Lena laughed, placing another pancake on her plate. That's 'cause it's true every time. The little girl spun, her arms out wide. Today is extra special, though. Lena raised a brow. Oh, why is that? Because we're going to the courthouse. Ethan chuckled. And what are we doing there again? Naomi placed her hands on her hips dramatically. We're making it official, forever official. The local courthouse was small, just a beige building with ivy creeping up its sides. But to Lena, it might as well have been a cathedral. She held Naomi's hand tightly as they walked inside, heart pounding in her chest. The judge, a kindly woman with silver glasses and a soft voice, greeted them with a warm smile. Naomi Jean Carter, she said, glancing over her papers. You've made a very important request here. Naomi stood tall. I want Lena to be my forever mommy. And Lena, is that what you want too? Lena's voice trembled. Yes, more than anything. Ethan stepped beside them, slipping an arm around Lena's waist. We're not just building a family, he said. We already are one. The judge looked at all three of them and nodded, the gavel in her hand tapping once on the wooden bench. Then by the power vested in me, I hereby grant the adoption of Naomi Jean Carter to Lena Rose Martin. May your love be strong, your Sundays sweet, and your forever filled with joy. Cheers erupted from the few close friends gathered. Naomi jumped into Lena's arms, squealing. You're really mine now, she cried. No, Lena whispered back. We're really each other's. Later that night, after cake and hugs and way too much glitter confetti, Naomi tiptoed into Lena's room with a folded piece of paper. What's this? Lena asked, sitting on the bed. It's from Mommy, Naomi said. My first one. Lena hesitated. You mean your birth mom? Naomi nodded. Daddy kept it for me, said I should read it when I had a new heart mommy. Hands trembling, Lena unfolded the letter. To my Naomi. If you're reading this, it means you found her, the one who will walk beside you when I no longer can. I prayed for her every night, you know. Someone kind, strong, full of stories. Someone who wouldn't try to replace me, but who would love you just as fiercely. Let her in, little one. Let her love you. And to you, whoever you are, thank you for choosing her, for staying, for becoming what I never got to finish being. With all my heart. Your first mom. Tears streamed down Lena's cheeks. Naomi reached out and wiped one away gently. She picked you, Naomi said simply, even before I did. The sun was setting over the lake again, golden light glittering on the water's surface. A small crowd had gathered at the oak tree. Friends, family, and townspeople who'd come to know the story of the lonely man, the wandering woman, and the little girl who brought them together. Lena stood in front of them, microphone in hand. Behind her, Naomi waited with cue cards and an oversized grin. Ready? Lena asked. Ready, Naomi beamed. They began to read the poem they wrote together. There once was a girl who whispered, Can I sit here? My dad's in heaven too. And someone sat down, not knowing that his heart would find a second home too. A woman watched them and wondered, could a place so broken still bloom? Turns out it could, because love always makes room. As they finished, the crowd applauded. Ethan walked up and wrapped an arm around both of them. You two stole the show, he said, eyes warm. Lena looked at Naomi. We always will. Naomi giggled. We're the forever kind.